Hey guys, today we're going to talk about something called histograms. Now, we've already talked about stem and leaf plots and box and whisker plots. So today I'm going to show you another type of graph that you're going to be making, and it's called a histogram. So please put that in your notes. Okay, so the first thing I just kind of want to review quick is you've seen a bar graph before. Okay, now a bar graph is a good way to kind of show data that you can put in categories. Okay, so for example, I have this graph here, the age for getting your driver's license, and I kind of split it into categories. I have my 16-year-olds, my 17, 18, and my 19-year-olds. Now, you guys don't need to write this down, just kind of pay attention. So I can see how many 16-year-olds got their license. It looks like, according to my bar graph, there was 11. Okay, now I can also see my 17-year-olds, that only 4 17-year-olds got their license. 18, it looks like 3. Okay, so if you notice, again, the bar graphs, there's just kind of one thing down here on the bottom, one category. On the side, just so you guys know, too, this word frequency means like how many times it happens. So the number of people that got their driver's license there. Okay, now, I just want to tell you, too, that a bar graph, usually when you make your things down here on the axis down here, you need to make sure that's just one category. So I could make a bar graph like of people's favorite colors, and I could put green, blue, okay, and then I could make my bar graph. One thing I do want you to notice, though, is on a bar graph, you always need a title. You need labels, so there's the colors, right, the categories. And over here, usually it says the word frequency. That means how many times it happens. Okay, and then I'd have some numbers. Okay, so a bar graph, one thing you should notice is that the bars are not touching. It's kind of separate categories. Okay, now I wanted to show you that because we're going to be learning about something called a histogram. Okay, so you're going to want to write this definition down for histogram. All right, so a histogram, it's like a bar graph, and it shows the frequency, that means how many times something happens, of data values in intervals of the same size. This definition is really important. Okay, we're going to be making a histogram. I'll show you how it works. Okay, so a histogram. I want you to come look over at this histogram. It shows how many CDs people own. Okay, now, this is what's different from a bar graph. Do you guys see down here the number of CDs? It just doesn't list one kind of category. It has a range of numbers. Like this one goes from 0 to 9. So I want to know how many people own between 0 and 9 CDs. I can tell that by looking. There's 4. Okay, over here, this is how many people own from 10 to 19 CDs. Well, that looks like only 3 people own that many. Then you can see the next categories as well. Okay, but these numbers down here, it's a range. Oops. It's a range of numbers. Okay, so that is really important. Also, you're going to notice it's the same size. Like this goes from 0 to 9. That's actually 10 numbers. From 10 to 19, that's 10 numbers. 20 to 29, 10 numbers. Okay, so each of them includes 10 numbers. Now, there's something kind of important, a couple important things about histograms. First thing that's important is that you always have your ranges or your intervals down here. Okay, second thing, you do need a title and you do need these labels again. Okay, now you might notice that in a histogram, the boxes or the bars are touching. Okay, they're kind of like continuous. So that's something important. Now, something else that's important on a histogram is you cannot, and you might want to write this, you cannot find exact numbers. So you cannot find exact numbers on a histogram. Okay, so for example, can you tell me if I asked you how many people have 11 CDs? All right, if I asked you that, you would say, well, I don't know for sure how many have 11. I know how many people have 10 to 19. 3 people have between 10 and 19, but you don't even know if anybody has 11. Maybe all these people have only 10 in this category, or 19. So you can't tell exact numbers. So that's what you can't tell in a histogram. Okay, now we're going to actually be making a little bit of a histogram. So you need to make this one together with me. All right, so here's what we got. I surveyed some people, and I asked them, how many movies have you watched? Okay, so you might want to write this down. Here was a survey. I said, how many movies did you watch? Here's what I got. Some people said 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. and then 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and then we'll say, somebody said 7. Okay, and I want to make an histogram for this data. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we kind of want to decide on our histogram, what do I want my intervals to be? Okay, so what do I want my intervals to be? I only go from 0 to 7, so I could probably have pretty small intervals. Okay, so here's what I'm going to think. Maybe let's just go intervals of 2, so that each category will have 2 numbers. So I'm going to start over here. My first little range here, my first bar is going to go from 0 to 2. So those are all the people that watch between 0 and 2. Actually, let's even do, I said 2 numbers, 0 and 1. Okay, now, I apologize for that, but 0 and 1, that includes the number 0 and 1. That's 2 numbers. So my next category has to be the same amount, so it has to be from 2 to 3. And that's 2 numbers, 2 and 3. My next one would be from 4 to 5. My next one would be 2 numbers, 6 and 7. Okay, and that's the highest I have, so that's all I have to go to. Now, when I make a histogram, I need a title, so I'm going to put movies up here, or movies watched. Okay, so always put a title. Okay, over here, this label is usually always the word frequency. So I'm going to write frequency. I'm going to write it going up and down so I can fit it. All right, so frequency. I'll just kind of split that. Okay, so frequency means like how many times it actually happened. Okay, so if you kind of look like for 0 to 1, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know I have to go up to 6 at least. So I think I could probably just count by ones for my frequency. So the bottom would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We might need to go higher. That's okay. Okay, so now here's how you actually make the bars. So I need to look for my 0 to 1 range, and I'm going to see how many people have watched between 0 and 1 movies. Well, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that watched between 0 and 1. So my first bar, and actually I should have started it over a little bit, goes all the way up to 6. So I'm going to go do that. It's up to 6, and I'm going to shade my bar in. I don't need to shade it in. I can just draw lines there. Okay, now my next bar is, let's do blue, from 2 to 3 movies. How many people watch 2 to 3? So I'm going to kind of look. Here's my 2s and my 3s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people watch between 2 and 3. So I'm going to still connect this bar. Okay, it should be connected, and I'll shade it in. I went all the way up to 5. Now between 4 and 5 movies, I'll go to that one. 4 and 5, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I better add 7 up here. All right, so this bar needs to come all the way up to 7. And I had to kind of color over that, but that's okay. All right, and then between 6 and 7 movies, there was only 1 person, so that bar is only going to go to 1. All right, so we just kind of made something called a histogram. Now, I am missing one thing down here. Down here at the bottom, I need to put the movies. This is the number of movies. I need to put a label. All right, so we just kind of made a histogram. Okay, it shows how many people watch movies, and it gives ranges. Now, if you look at the histogram, there's some things you can't tell. You can't really find the median by looking at a histogram. Just by looking at it, you can't find it. Okay, the mode, you could kind of give a range for the mode. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go back. The mode, it looks like most people watch between 4 and 5 just by looking at the histogram. So that would be the mode. Most people watch between 4 and 5. Just by looking at the histogram, you cannot find the mean, and you can't find the median either. So you can't find very many things by looking at the histogram. So you might think, well, what can I tell? Well, you can kind of tell which ranges have the most. That's what a histogram kind of shows, which ranges have the most. So a lot of people have between 4 and 5 movies and 0 and 1 movies, and 2 and 3. So there's not very many people down here. So this just kind of gives you like an overall picture of what histograms show. Okay, so now that you've seen what a histogram looks like, I just have a couple questions for you. So you're not actually going to make one. We're going to make one. We'll make some tomorrow in class. We'll practice some of those, but I do have some questions. All right, so there's 3 questions, 1, 2, and 3. You need to kind of look at this histogram and see if you can answer them. Now, I didn't really go through this, but you should be able to kind of look and see, just by looking at it, you should be able to count how many students I surveyed, how many students are in the class, all that kind of stuff, just by looking at it. So do your best. I want you to answer these 3 questions, and we're going to practice histograms tomorrow in class. So please make sure you fill out the form, okay, and bring your notes to class tomorrow.